In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Welcome to night 4 of the Truth Promoters Group Arbaeen 2025 program. Tonight we walk in the shadow of a woman whose silence was thunder and whose speech shook empires. Sayyidah Zaynab, peace be upon her, did not carry a sword. She carried the truth, and through her, the massacre of Karbala became a revolution that could never be silenced. Our Quranic anchors for this evening are found here. Chapter 4, Surah Nisa, the chapter of women, verse 58. Quran chapter 62, Surah Al-Jumu'ah, the chapter of Friday, verse 5. Quran chapter 13, Surah Ar-Ra'd, the chapter of thunder, verse 11. Quran chapter 17, Surah Al-Isra, the chapter of the night journey, verse 36. Quran chapter 24, Surah An-Nur, the chapter of light, verse 24, and Ziyarah Arbaeen. To view the full verse and its visual presentation, please visit www.islamicdigest.org.
In the name of God, the Merciful, the especially merciful. Indeed, God commands you to deliver trusts to their rightful owners, and that when you judge between people, you judge with justice. Excellent indeed is what God advises you. Indeed, God is all-hearing, all-seeing. The likeness of those who were charged with the Torah, then failed to carry it, is that of a donkey carrying books. Evil is the likeness of the people who deny God's signs, and God does not guide the wrongdoing lot. Indeed, God does not change a people's lot unless they change what is in their own souls. And do not speak about that of which you have no knowledge. Indeed, hearing, sight, and the heart, all these are accountable. Today their tongues, their hands, and their feet will bear witness against them concerning what they used to do. He gave his blood for you to save your servants from ignorance and misguidance.
Welcome back. Our poetic couplet for tonight is titled In the Footsteps of Zaynab, and it is inspired by Surah Al-Ahzab, the 33rd chapter of the Quran, the chapter of the Confederates, verse 35. This piece honors the legacy of witness and resistance carried by the women of Karbala, not from behind the curtain, but from the front lines of divine history. You can watch the full couplet video and read the text at www.islamicdigest.org.
Her words were swords, yet soft with grace. She stood where men trembled to face. She did not speak, she unveiled the lie. With veiled face, she made tyrants die. She declared, I did not see anything but beauty.
We now move to tonight's main lecture, Tabyeen, Part 14, In the Footsteps of Zaynab, delivered by Shaykh Shabbir Hassanally. This session examines the spiritual and political role of Sayyidah Zaynab, her eloquence, her insight, and her refusal to let Yazid rewrite history. The full transcript, including scholarly references and Quranic analysis, is available at www.reflections313.com.
I think it's good we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, maliki yawmiddin, إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعن الله ولا أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين. أما بعد. Peace be upon you, O son of the messenger of God. Peace be upon you, O son of the master of the successors. We bear witness that you are the trustee of God and the son of his trustee. You lived a blessed life, departed praiseworthy, and died a martyr, deprived and wronged. And we bear witness that God will fulfill what he promised you, and will destroy those who abandoned you, and punish those who killed you. And we bear witness that you fulfilled the covenant of God, and strove in his way until certainty came to you. So may God's mercy be away from those who killed you and wronged you. And may God's mercy be away from the people that heard of this and were pleased with it. O God, we make you our witness that we are friends to those who befriend you, and enemies to those who are hostile toward you. May our fathers and our mothers be sacrificed for you, O Son of the Messenger of God. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, this is the 14th in our series of sessions for the nights of Ashura, and now continuing in these blessed nights of Arbaeen on the subject of Tabyeen or clarification. This is the fourth and penultimate part of the second series on Tabyeen. We will be continuing this series during these remaining nights of Arbaeen, God willing. As with all of our other sessions, such as those on patience, the lantern of the path, and the art of supplication, it is strongly recommended that anyone consuming this, at the very least, review the previous sessions prior to consuming this one. This is because of the nature of the discussion, the manner of discourse really requires that each part build upon the one that came before. And so as to avoid confusion, misunderstanding, or in fact any invalid assumptions that might lead to what is the antithesis of Tabyeen, it is strongly, strongly recommended that people review the previous parts. While we do have a recap for each session, the recap is highly summarized. And in order to get the full nuance, the previous sessions will really need to be consumed, studied, and reflected upon. Also, some of these sessions are rather long. So I ask everyone to have the patience and fortitude to be able to go through them fully, because all of it is quite important. Nevertheless, if I can get a salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, we can move on to the recap of our previous session.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد عجل الفرج.
So in our 13th session, we turned our gaze to the front lines of the Ummah, the youth. No longer a distant demographic or a sentimental concern, the youth were revealed as the battleground of our time, assaulted by ideological confusion, targeted by algorithmic seduction, and left vulnerable by a silence too long maintained by the elders. Drawing from the Quran, the sayings of Ahlul Bayt, peace and blessings be upon them, and the teachings of Imam Khamenei, especially his Letter for You campaign and his warnings on the soft war, we explored the divine station of youth in history and their central role to the jihad of Tabyeen. The companions of the cave, Prophet Ibrahim, Prophet Yusuf, Sayyidah Maryam, all are exemplars of youthful sincerity in the face of empire and temptation. We diagnose the modern crisis, not merely of disbelief, but rather of disinterest. Not a rebellion against the faith, but a numbing of the desire to even seek it. And so the call was made to rekindle longing before demanding knowledge, to soften hearts before instructing minds. We then outlined the enemy's methods: identity fragmentation, overstimulation, moral inversion, and spiritual despair. And in response, we offered a strategy grounded in the guidance of the Quran and Ahlul Bayt to revive the identity of wilaya, to restore reverence and silence, to rebuild broken trust in families, to cultivate companionship-based mentorship, to embed sincerity in every gathering, and to prepare the youth for the jihad of clarification, not only by protecting them, but by empowering them as torchbearers of truth. From Karbala to Qom, from Qasim to Hujjaji, from Ali al-Akbar to the seminarian poets of the revolution, the path was clear. Youth are not ornaments of the Ummah. They are its heartbeat. But the question remains, what happens when those who walked the path before, the mothers of Karbala, the women of resistance, become the teachers of clarity? When the voice that rose in Kufa, shackled but unshaken, becomes the standard of truth in an age of compromise. That is the mission of this session. We will now follow the footsteps of Sayyidah Zaynab. Please give me a salawat and we move on to the main part.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So, in every age, tyrants believe that by spilling blood, they can silence a movement. They believe that by killing the leader, the mission dies. But Karbala proved otherwise. For the revolution of Imam Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him, did not end with his martyrdom. It began anew in the voice of his sister. Sayyidah Zaynab, peace and blessings be upon her, did not rise to claim authority. She rose because no voice remained except hers. She stood in the court of Yazid, not as a prisoner, but as a clarifier of divine truth. Her sermon did not merely describe tragedy, it shattered the narrative of the oppressors. It exposed the false claims of victory and preserved the moral clarity of Ashura for generations to come. In Quran, Surah Al-Qasas, the chapter of the narratives, 28th chapter of the Quran, verse number 5, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "And we desire to show favor to those who are oppressed in the land, and to make them leaders and to make them inheritors." Her chains, Sayyidah Zaynab's chains were not symbols of defeat. Rather, they were a refutation of worldly power. Her hijab was not an obstacle to resistance, but the very banner of her dignity and defiance. She stood veiled, yet unveiled the truths Yazid sought to bury. She stood shackled, yet unshackled the conscience of the Ummah. Her sermon in Damascus echoes to this day. So plot your schemes, and exert your efforts, and strive with all of your power. By God, you will never erase our remembrance, nor extinguish our revelation, nor reach our end, nor wash away your shame. And like with all of these different sessions, the write-up contains all of the citations, references, and more, and I recommend everyone please take a look at that. So her words were not those of a victim, but of a witness to divine justice, a woman who had seen slaughter and captivity and still refused to submit to the throne of falsehood. This moment must be understood, not just as an act of grief, but as an act of divine clarification, an act of Tabyeen. Imam Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him, embodied the truth in blood. Sayyidah Zaynab articulated it in speech. Without her, the revolution of Ashura could have been drowned by propaganda and forgotten by fear. With her, it became an eternal beacon for the oppressed. In Quran, Surah Al-Fussilat, the chapter of the expounded signs, 41st chapter of the Quran, verse number 33, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And who speaks better than one who calls to God and acts righteously and says, indeed, I am of the Muslims, of those who submit." Her role must also be seen in harmony with the role of Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein Zayn al-Abidin, peace and blessings be upon them both, the Imam of her time. Sayyidah Zaynab did not rise out of rebellion, nor out of personal ambition. She acted in coordination with the Imam and with his permission, and always deferred to his spiritual authority. Her leadership was not independent of Imamah, it was the clarifying extension of it. Imam Khamenei, in a speech on Sayyidah Zaynab, has said, "Sayyidah Zaynab was the tongue of Imam Hussein, and Imam Sajjad was the silent proof. Together they preserved the wilayah of God in a world that wished to bury it." And again, all of the references, citations can be found in the write-up. In her courage, we find not rebellion, but submission. In her speech, not chaos, but order. In her stance, not defiance of religion, but its highest defense. She did not become the voice of Ashura because she was a woman, nor did she become the voice of Ashura despite being a woman. She became it because she was prepared, because she believed, and because she spoke only when the silence of others threatened the truth. Sayyidah Zaynab is the mother of Tabyeen, and we, who claim to love Imam al-Hussein, must walk in her footsteps. Please give me a salawat and we start looking at women in the Quran, agents of revelation and resistance.
اللهم صل
اللهم صل
على
على
محمد
محمد وآل
وآل
محمد.
محمد وعجل فرجه.
So our focus now shifts to reframing the narrative surrounding women in Islamic revelation, moving beyond the perception of women as mere symbolic accessories to male leadership, and instead highlighting their role as active participants in tabyeen or clarification, in resistance, and in the transmission of divine message. We will demonstrate that the Quran itself affirms the spiritual and political agency of women, not as a product of modern reinterpretation, but as a truth rooted in the very text of revelation. By tracing a Quranic lineage of women who clarified divine truths through obedience, confrontation, narration, and sacrifice, this exploration ultimately culminates in the enduring legacy of Sayyidah Zaynab, peace and blessings be upon her, whose life stands as a testament to the profound agency and authority granted to women within the Islamic tradition. So firstly, let us look at the mother of Musa, or the mother of Moses, revelation in the hands of a woman. The Quran begins the story of Prophet Musa, Moses, peace and blessings be upon him, not with miracles, but with a woman. And not just any woman, but the one who received direct divine revelation. In Quran, in Surah Al-Qasas, the chapter of the narratives, 28th chapter of the Quran, verse number 7, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, "We revealed to the mother of Moses, nurse him, then when you fear for him, cast him into the river, and do not fear nor grieve. Indeed, we shall restore him to you and make him one of the messengers." This was wahi, or revelation, not legislative, but revelatory nevertheless. In the most vulnerable moment of her life, God trusted her with a command that would shape prophetic history. She did not argue, she obeyed, and her obedience was itself an act of tabyeen. A woman confronting tyranny not with sword or speech, but with the trust that exposed Pharaoh's fear and laid the groundwork for the mission of Prophet Musa. Next, let us look at Sayyidah Asiya, the believer in the palace of oppression. The Quran introduces Sayyidah Asiya, the wife of Pharaoh, not merely as a compassionate woman, but as a paragon of resistance within the heart of tyranny. In Quran, in Surah Al-Qasas, again, the chapter of the narratives, 28th chapter of the Quran, verse number 9, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, "The wife of Pharaoh said, 'He will be a comfort to my eyes and to yours. Do not kill him. Maybe he will benefit us, or we may adopt him as a son.' Yet they did not perceive what was to come." And indeed, she is immortalized as a model believer in Surah At-Tahrim, the chapter of the prohibition, 66th chapter of the Quran, verse number 11, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "God has drawn a parable for those who have faith, the wife of Pharaoh, when she said, 'My Lord, build for me a home with you in paradise, and deliver me from Pharaoh and his conduct, and deliver me from the wrongdoing people.'" She did not just save Moses from death. She rejected Pharaoh's ideology, lived under his tyranny, yet defied him spiritually, and became a model of loyalty to God. This is Tabyeen, standing for truth while surrounded by falsehood. Next, let us look at Sayyidah Maryam, Saint Mary, silence, shame, and divine defense. Sayyidah Maryam's Tabyeen came through bearing the divine word. She was accused, shamed, and isolated, yet she never wavered. The Quran captures the moment she was confronted, and this is in Surah Al-Maryam, the chapter of Saint Mary, 19th chapter of the Quran, verses 27 to 28. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "She brought him," this is the baby, "she brought him to her people carrying him. They said, 'O Maryam, you have certainly done a shocking thing. O sister of Harun, your father was not a wicked man, nor was your mother unchaste.'" And then the infant Jesus, Isa, spoke. And this is again from Surah Maryam, the chapter of Saint Mary, 19th chapter of the Quran, verses 30 to 31. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, Jesus said as an infant, "Indeed, I am the servant of God. He has given me the book and made me a prophet, and he has made me blessed wherever I may be, and he has enjoined on me prayer and zakat or charity as long as I live, and to be good to my mother, and has not made me selfish and wretched. She did not respond to slander. Her silence was not weakness. It was a stage upon which divine truth would speak. This is Tabyeen, allowing the truth to unveil itself while the world rushes to judgment. Next, let us look at Sayyidah Hajar, the woman whose footsteps became ritual. Sayyidah Hajar, the mother of Prophet Ismail, was left in the desert, yet her running became revelation. Prophet Ibrahim, or Abraham, peace and blessings be upon him, prayed, and this is from Surah Ibrahim, the chapter of Prophet Abraham, 14th chapter of the Quran, verse number 37. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us the prayer of Prophet Ibrahim. He says, O Lord, I have settled part of my descendants in a barren valley by your sacred house. O Lord, that they may maintain the prayer. So make the hearts of a part of the people fond of them and provide them with fruits so that they may give thanks. Her search for water became the sa'i, which is the running between the mounts of Safa and Marwa, which has been preserved in the Hajj. Her footsteps echo for eternity. Tabyeen is sometimes loud, and sometimes it is silent effort in the desert that God chooses to immortalize. Next, let us look at the women of allegiance, or bay'ah, political agents of the truth. In Quran, in Surah Al-Mumtahina, the chapter of the woman to be examined, 60th chapter of the Quran, verse number 12, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, O Prophet, when faithful women come to you to take the oath of allegiance to you, pledging that they shall not ascribe any partners to God, that they shall not steal, nor commit adultery, nor kill their children, nor utter any slander that may have been intentionally fabricated, nor disobey you in what is right, then accept their allegiance and plead for them to God for forgiveness. Indeed, God is all forgiving, all merciful. The women of Medina were not sidelined. They pledged, they promised truth. They entered into a contract with the Prophet and ultimately with God. Tabyeen includes the realm of bay'ah, or allegiance, politics, public allegiance, collective accountability. Next, let us look at Salama, the narrator of prophetic grief. When the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, informed Salama, who was one of his wives, of Imam Hussein's martyrdom, he gave her a flask of Karbala, of the soil of Karbala, saying it would turn to blood on that day, the day of Imam Hussein's martyrdom. In Nafs al-Mahmoum, Shaykh al-Qummi says, the messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, said, this is soil that Gabriel brought me. I took it from the place where Hussein will be killed, and when he is martyred, it will turn to blood. Her preservation of this hadith is an act of tabyeen, protecting sacred memory against erasure. And now let us look at Sayyidah Zaynab, the living tafsir or exegesis of tabyeen. When Ibn Ziyad mocked her and asked, how did you find the way God treated your brother? She replied, I saw nothing but beauty. And again, all of the references can be found in the write-up. In the court of Yazid, she declared, by God, you will never erase our remembrance, nor will you ever cause our revelation to die. She is not an exception. She is the continuation of Qur'anic womanhood. Her tabyeen was both an act of resistance and a revival of the Qur'an's truest spirit. The Qur'an does not restrict tabyeen to men, nor does it confine revelation to prophets. The women of divine history stood with dignity, patience, and courage, and Sayyidah Zaynab stood in their footsteps ahead of them as the final voice of Karbala. Please give me a salawat and we'll move to the idea of Sayyidah Zaynab and the weaponization of shame.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
She was shackled, but she was not silenced. In the aftermath of Karbala, Sayyidah Zaynab was spared by the sword, but she was targeted by something far more insidious, the weapon of humiliation. In the palace of Yazid, surrounded by the heads of martyrs and the laughter of courtiers, her captor did not merely aim to dominate her physically, he sought to crush her dignity. This tactic, stripping a woman of her sanctity and reducing her to a figure of shame, has long been the method of tyrants. The goal is not simply to imprison the body, but to make the soul question its worth, to silence truth by tarnishing honor. However, said Zaynab, she rose, in chains, surrounded by orphans, veils torn, and the grief immeasurable. She spoke not with vengeance, but with divine lucidity. Her pulpit was not of wood, it was her stance. Her sermon did not echo from marble halls, it thundered through time. Let's now look at Yazid's attempts at humiliation and her divine rebuttal. In Damascus, Yazid mocked the family of the Prophet and recited poetry linking his supposed victory to vengeance for Badr. When Sayyidah Zaynab was brought before him, he attempted to gloat over the martyrdom of her brother. She responded not as a grieving sister, but in fact as a hujjah, a proof of God against the tyrant. Her words, as recorded in Al-Ihtijaj, carry the same tone as Qur'anic prophets before oppressors. She says, "So scheme your schemes, strive your utmost and exert your efforts. By God, you will never erase our remembrance, nor will you cause our revelation to die, nor reach our legacy, nor wash away your shame." This was Tabyeen in its purest form, speaking truth to power with fearless clarity. It echoed the Qur'anic imperative in Surah Al-An'am, the chapter of the cattle, 6th chapter of the Quran, verse 152. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "And when you speak, speak with justice, even if it is against your own kin." And Surah Al-Ahzab, the chapter of the Confederates, 33rd chapter of the Quran, verse number 39. "Those who deliver the messages of God and fear Him, and fear none but God." Let us now look at shame as a tool of tyranny. The attempt to reduce a woman's power by attacking her dignity is not unique to Yazid. It is a tactic that has persisted across history. Imam Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, in his letter to Malik al-Ashtar warned, "Beware of rushing to defame people, for that is among the greatest forms of injustice." Shahid Mutahari explains in The Rights of Women in Islam that Islam was revolutionary in preserving the dignity of women in a society that used shame as a form of control. He says, "In the era of ignorance in Jahiliyyah, a woman was not only deprived of human rights, but her dignity and respect depended on her silence, on her seclusion, and her distance from society. Islam, by granting human rights to women, removed her from this condition and established her dignity and respect on the basis of faith, intellect, and human nobility." Let us now look at the Quranic principle that human dignity is inviolable. The Quran repeatedly insists that human dignity is not conditional, it is inherent. In Surah Al-Isra, the chapter of the night journey, 17th chapter of the Quran, verse number 70, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "Indeed, we have honored the children of Adam." Allama Tabatabai in Tafsir al-Mizan notes that this karama, this honor, is not just the honor of creation. Rather, it's a responsibility to uphold the truth and resist degradation, even when someone is under oppression. And the Quran warns against shaming others. In Surah Al-Hujurat, the chapter of the chambers, 49th chapter of the Quran, verse number 11, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "O you who believe, let not some people ridicule others. They may be better than them." And Imam Khamenei, may Allah protect him, in his lectures on Islamic identity reminds us, a society in which women are honored based on piety, not appearance or silence, is a society that truly reflects Islam. Now let us look at modern parallels, gaslighting and emotional undermining. So the tactic used by Yazid is echoed, unfortunately, today. Women are made to feel too emotional, they're made to feel too emotional to teach or to lead. Wives are told obedience means silence, even when they witness wrongdoing. Activist women are shamed with labels, radical, immodest, disobedient, to keep them away from the front lines of moral discourse. But the Ahlul Bayt rejected such tactics. Imam Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him, has said, "The believer is more unyielding than the mountain. The mountain can be chipped away with picks, but nothing can chip away the faith of a believer." Sayyidah Zaynab is the proof of this hadith, a believer who could not be moved, even when shackled before the oppressor of her time. Now let us look at the idea of restoring the psychology of dignity. So, to follow Sayyidah Zaynab, peace and blessings be upon her, is not to simply weep for her. It is to learn from her refusal to be diminished. Communities must teach her story, not just during the nights of Ashura and Arbaeen, but in marriage courses, in youth halaqat or study circles, and indeed mental health circles. They must incorporate her sermon into Islamic leadership training, especially for women's programs, but also for men's programs. They must frame modesty as presence with dignity, not erasure or enforced silence. And they must recognize and confront spiritual and emotional abuse wherever it appears, including in religious spaces. Imam Khomeini, may God bless his pure soul, has taught us, when a child is in his mother's lap, he sees that his mother has good morals, correct actions, and pleasant speech. The child from that very place imitates the actions and words of the mother, which is the highest form of imitation, and is shaped by the mother's influence, which is the most effective of all influences. The happiness and misery of countries depends on the presence of women, and it is the women who, through her proper upbringing, creates human beings and leads the country and society toward reform. Imam Khamenei has also said something similar. He says, if a woman in a family, in a society, is properly educated, that family and that society will attain happiness. And once more, back to Imam Khomeini, who teaches us, and this is a very, very important quote, woman is the manifestation of the realization of human aspirations. Woman is the nurturer of noble men and women. From the lap of the woman, the man ascends to the heavens. The lap of the woman is the place where great women and great men are raised. It is a great day. A woman came into the world who stands against all men. A woman was born who is the exemplar of humanity. A woman was born in whom all human identity is manifest. So this is a great day. It is your day, women. And this was on the birth anniversary of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra. And again, the citation, reference, everything are in the write-up. But that ascent is only possible when the woman is not made to feel ashamed for merely existing. Sayyidah Zaynab's chains were not her weakness. They were her pulpit, her mimbar. Her sermon was not a response. It was the continuation of Ashura. She did not defend herself. She defended the truth. And in doing so, she taught every generation that true shame is not in being oppressed. It is in remaining silent when truth is trampled upon. Let us never weaponize shame. Let us raise Zaynabi daughters and Husseini sons who honor them. Please give me a salawat, and we move to the subject of the injustice of silencing from Fadak to Damascus.
اللهم صل على محمد
محمد
وآل
وآل
محمد.
محمد وعجل فرجهم.
So the legacy of Tabyeen through speech did not begin with Sayyidah Zaynab. It was inherited. Decades before the plains of Karbala, Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, peace and blessings be upon her, stood in the Prophet's mosque, delivering a sermon that remains among the most theologically and politically forceful discourses in human history. This is known as the Khutbah al-Fadakiyyah. Her sermon, which opens with detailed Qur'anic praise and affirmation of divine justice, included this command from the Book of God. This is from Surah An-Nisa, the chapter of the women, 4th chapter of the Quran, verse 135, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O you who believe, O you who have faith, be maintainers of justice and witnesses for God, even if it be against yourselves. She did not speak emotionally. She spoke exegetically, correcting a misreading of divine inheritance law and the right of wilayah. As said Hassan Nasrallah, may God rest his pure soul, stated in a lecture commemorating Sayyidah Zaynab, Sayyidah Zaynab did not speak after Imam Hussein. She became Imam Hussein. His blood flowed on her tongue as it flowed on his body. The sermon of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra became the sermon of Sayyidah Zaynab. This is Sayyid Hassan saying this. Let us now look at the idea of silencing in the name of modesty, a corruption of the prophetic model. So, across generations, women's public voices have been restricted, not through textual prohibition, but rather through cultural manipulation. The guise of modesty has often been used to block even the most Qur'anic and scholarly voices. Imam Ali states in Nahj Balagha, people are of two types, a righteous, God-conscious one who is noble before God, and a wicked, miserable one who is insignificant before God. No distinction is made by gender. Honor is through taqwa, as the Quran declares in Surah Hujurat, the chapter of the chambers, 49th chapter of the Quran, verse number 13. Indeed, the most honored of you in God's sight is the most God-conscious amongst you. And the martyred Ayatollah Beheshti, he wrote, Islam did not command women to be silent. Rather, it invited both men and women to responsibility. Let us now look at speech as a religious duty, not a gendered privilege. The Quran commands speech as a means of justice, not gender. One of the most powerful verses on da'wah, inviting to Islam, evangelizing, reads, and this is from Surah Al-Fussilat, the chapter of the explaining in detail, 41st chapter of the Quran, verse number 33. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and who speaks better than one who invites to God, does righteous deeds, and says, I am of the Muslims, or I am of the ones who submit. In Tafsir al-Mizan, Allama Tabatabai, he writes, this verse proves that the best speech is that which invites to God, paired with righteous action and identity within Islam. And it includes all believing men and women. Shaykh Murtada Mutahhari, may God rest his pure soul, confirms this principle in the rights of women in Islam. He says, Islam does not accept a woman's silence in the face of injustice under the name of modesty. What is sacred is truth, not silence before falsehood. Let us now look at Sayyidah Zaynab's sermon as divine fulfillment. When Sayyidah Zaynab stood before Yazid, she embodied the Quranic imperative. And this is from Surah Al-Ahzab, the chapter of the Confederates, 33rd chapter of the Quran, verse number 70, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, O you who believe, be conscious of God and speak a word that is just. Imam Khamenei in his speech has said, the sermon of Sayyidah Zaynab in Yazid's court was not a sword, it was a verse that exposed the tyrant. Now, let us look at why silencing women is bid'ah. It's an innovation and it is not Islam. The Prophet himself condemned the hiding of truth. He said, and this is from Al-Kafi, he said, when innovations appear in my ummah, the scholar must reveal his knowledge. Whoever does not, upon him is the curse of God. This includes female scholars and truth speakers, as Ayatollah Sayyidina Hussein Fadlallah has said, or rather has written. He says, The woman is not expected to be silent when Islam is violated. She must cry out for truth in the same way as Sayyidah Fatima Zahra and Sayyidah Zaynab did. Let us now look at why Zaynabi platforms must be created. So, if we honor Sayyidah Zaynab, we must build the platforms she never had. Hawza and seminaries must train female preachers and scholars with theological rigor. Khutbahs, sermons, halaqat, study circles, and majalis, sittings, should include the voices of righteous women. And cultural constructs that equate female presence with impropriety must be confronted. The martyr, Sayyid Abbas al-Musawi, speaking to women in Lebanon shortly before his martyrdom, declared, "The woman who rejects humiliation and declares her stance is the witness to the continuity of Husseini blood. If she does not speak, Hussein will die again." Please give me a salawat and we move to Risalat al-Huquq and the marriage of light.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So let us now look at marriage as a moral trust, not a power hierarchy. In the teachings of Islam, marriage is not a transactional contract or a platform for control. Rather, it is a spiritual partnership rooted in mutual rights, in love and accountability. No text captures this better than Risalat al-Huquq of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, peace and blessings be upon him, where the Imam lists over 50 reciprocal rights between the individual, society, and God. Among them is the right of the wife, haqq az-zawja, which he describes in the following words. He says, "As for the right of your wife, you should know that God has made her a tranquility and comfort for you. She is a blessing from God, therefore honor her and treat her with gentleness. Even though your right over her is greater, she still has a right that you should show her mercy. For she is your captive. Feed her and clothe her, and if she is ignorant at times, forgive her." This profound formulation annihilates any reading of Islam that treats marriage as a hierarchy of superiority. The wife is not a servant. She is a trust from God. Her mistakes are not occasions for domination. They are moments that demand forgiveness, mercy, and compassion. Let us now look at the Qur'anic vision, love and mercy, not control. Now, the foundation of this ethic is in the Qur'an itself. In Qur'an, in Surah Al-Rum, the chapter of the Romans, 30th chapter of the Qur'an, verse number 21, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "And amongst His signs is that He created for you mates from amongst yourselves, so that you may find tranquility in them, and He placed between you affection and mercy." In Tafsir al-Mizan, Allama Tabatabai, may God rest his soul, writes, "Tranquility only exists where there is security. Affection and mercy are the psychological foundations of married life, not dominance or coercion." Let us now look at the idea of revisiting qiwama or protection, accountability, not superiority. So the oft misunderstood verse, which is Surah An-Nisa, the chapter of the women, 4th chapter of the Quran, verse number 34, which says, "Men are the maintainers, qawamun, of women." This verse has been weaponized in patriarchal cultures to imply male superiority. But the Quranic term qawwama comes from qiyam, to stand with, to support, to protect, not to dominate. Imam Khomeini, Qudus Sirruh Sharif, may God rest his pure soul, he explains, qawwama means responsibility, not superiority. The man is accountable, not a master. And this is from his Tahrir al-Wasila. And again, all of the references and citations are in the write-up. I strongly recommend people take a look at it. And Ayatollah Shaheed Dr. Beheshti adds, "In Islam, the man is qawwam not because he is superior, but because greater responsibility is placed upon him." Let us now look at a very interesting subject, the problem of polygamy, legal but often abused. Islam permits polygamy under strict ethical and social responsibility. Polygamy, of course, being a man having more than one wife. Yet in many communities, it is abused by those who use the letter of the law to satisfy their ego, rather than to serve justice. The Quran warns. Surah An-Nisa, the chapter of the women, 4th chapter of the Quran, verse number 3. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "But if you fear you will not deal justly, then marry only one." Ayatollah Mutahhari strongly condemned the misuse of polygamy. He says, "Polygamy, when it crosses the boundaries of justice, becomes injustice, not just to the woman, but in fact to Islam itself." Even the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, despite it being lawful, only married monogamously with said Khadija, the woman who bore the weight of his mission. Let us now look at the idea of rebuilding marriage on the basis of wilaya. To rebuild the sanctity of marriage, we must return to Risalat al-Huquq and the Quran. The path forward requires, number one, premarital education grounded in Islamic ethics and emotional intelligence, condemning the cultural distortion of qawwama into authoritarianism, teaching men that honoring one's wife is part of religious piety and God awareness, and reframing discussions of polygamy from legal entitlement to a moral burden. As said Hassan Nasrallah, may God rest his pure soul, beautifully summarized. In Islam, the woman is the partner of the man, not his subordinate. She, just as Sayyidah Zaynab was the partner in Imam Hussein's blood, the woman must be a partner in responsibility. Now, please give me a loud salawat and we move on to the subject of women as protectors of wilaya.
اللهم صل على محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So, wilaya is not sustained by swords alone. The concept of wilaya, divine authority and guardianship, lies at the heart of Islam. But this sacred trust did not survive through men alone. Women were the pillars of its preservation, often when men faltered, and always when truth was endangered. The Quran honors the first believers not by gender, but by conviction. In Surah Tawbah, the chapter of repentance, 9th chapter of the Quran, verse 100, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "And the foremost, the first among the immigrants and the helpers, and those who follow them in excellence. God is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Him." Among these sabiqun, the foremost, was Sayyidah Khadija, peace and blessings be upon her, the first to believe in the Prophet, the financier of the Islamic mission, and the woman whose home housed the roots of wilaya. Let us now talk a little about Sayyidah Khadija, the first to guard the flame. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, has said, the best of the women of her time was Khadija bint Khuwaylid. And when she died, Gabriel descended and conveyed God's greetings to her. And this is narrated in both Sunni and Shia sources. We'll look at the Sunni source first. In Al-Bukhari, it says, "Convey to her the peace of her Lord and my own peace." This is Jibreel speaking to Prophet Muhammad. "Convey to her the peace of her Lord and my own peace, and give her glad tidings of a home in paradise." And from Shia sources, this is from Bihar al-Anwar, it says, Gabriel came to the Prophet and said, "O Muhammad, convey to Khadija the greetings of peace from her Lord." Imam Khomeini, may God bless his pure soul, wrote of her, "Islam is indebted to Khadija. Without her financial and emotional support, the prophetic mission would have been strangled at birth." Next, let us look at Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, the voice of post-prophetic wilaya. After the Prophet's passing, when confusion spread and truth was buried beneath politics, it was Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra who rose to defend the wilaya of Amir al-Mu'mineen Imam Ali. Her khutbah al-Fadakiyya is not just a grievance over land. It is a constitutional sermon affirming the Quranic basis for imamah, succession, and resistance against tyranny. She said, "They broke the covenants of wilayah, exposed its secrets, and denied its blessings." And this is from Khutbah al-Fadakiyya. And in fact, the entire text of the khutbah is in the write-up. It's too long to mention over here, but the entire text in Arabic and English is available in the write-up. I recommend everyone take a look at it. Ayatollah Sayyid Hussain Fadlallah, may God rest his pure soul, says, Sayyidah Fatima's sermon was a cry of imamah. It stirred history in defense of wilayah, just as Ashura stirred the hearts. Next, let us look at Sayyidah Zaynab, the one who preserved Karbala. If Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra guided wilayah through speech, Sayyidah Zaynab preserved it through endurance. Imam Zayn al-Abidin, peace and blessings be upon him, said of her, "You are, by God's grace, a woman of knowledge without being taught, and of understanding without being instructed." And Sayyid Abbas al-Musawi, may God rest his pure soul, called her the narrator of Karbala and the bearer of Imam Hussein's standard to the Ummah. Without Sayyidah Zaynab, Ashura would have been blood without meaning. Let us now look at Surah Al-Kawthar, abundance through a woman. Those who mocked the Prophet for having no male progeny were rebuked in the Quran. In Surah Al-Kawthar, the chapter of abundance, the 108th chapter of the Quran, verses 1 to 3. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "Indeed, we have given you abundance. So pray to your Lord and sacrifice. Indeed, your enemy is the one cut off." Allama Tabatabai in Al-Mizan interprets Al-Kawthar as, "It is great abundance, and its greatest manifestation is Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra and her pure progeny." Through Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, the line of Imamah continued, and through Sayyidah Zaynab, its message was preserved. Let us now look at teaching the uswa, or the example, of the women of wilayah. Communities should revive their madrasa or religious school curricula to center the roles of Sayyidah Khadija, Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidah Zaynab, not just as family members, but as leaders of resistance. They should also highlight their theological significance in Islamic studies, not only emotional value in morning rituals. They should teach Surah Al-Kawthar not as a rebuttal to polytheists, but as a Quranic validation of feminine wilayah. And they should empower young women to see themselves as successors of this path, not just mourners of its history. Imam Khamenei has said, "The woman in Islam is a carrier of the message, the inheritor of wilayah, and the speaker of truth. This is not an exception, it is the origin." Please give me a salawat, and we'll look at women in the modern era of Tabyeen.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل.
In every era of Islamic struggle, women have stepped forward, not merely as supporters of resistance, but as frontline participants, thinkers, teachers, and martyrs. Sayyidah Zaynab shattered the illusion that modesty means silence, or that faith is passive. Her sermon in Yazid's court, unveiled, unflinching, and unmatched, has echoed across centuries. Its spirit can be heard in the defiant voices of women in Iraq, Iran, Egypt, Palestine, and beyond. The Quran says in Surah Al-Ahzab, the chapter of the Confederates, 33rd chapter of the Quran, verse 39, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "They are those who convey the messages of God. Fear Him and fear none but God." Such are the Zaynabis of our time. And let's look at a few of them. First of all, let's look at Sayyidah Amina bint al-Huda, the martyr of the pen. She was the sister of Ayatollah Shaheed, Sayyid Muhammad Baqir al-Sadr, and a scholar in her own right. Sayyidah Amina bint al-Huda revolutionized Islamic education for girls in Iraq. She established schools, edited religious journals, and used fiction to teach Islamic values. In a lecture, she once said, "A woman's pen can be a warrior, just like the bullets of the Mujahideen." She was arrested, tortured, and martyred by the Saddam regime in April of 1980, just days before her brother. Imam Khamenei, may Allah protect him, praised her, saying, "Shahida Sayyidah Amina bint al-Huda was a banner of Tabyeen in the arena of women." Next, let us look at Marzieh Haddadshi, or Dabbagh as she's sometimes called, the commander of the revolution. Once tortured by the Shah's Savak, his secret police that was trained and funded by the CIA and Mossad, Marzieh Haddadshi became a leading commander in the armed resistance and a representative of Imam Khomeini during his exile. She later served as a member of parliament and remained a fierce defender of the Islamic system. Imam Khomeini has said, "Some women stood against the tyrant with more nobility than many men." Let us now look at Zaynab al-Ghazali, a voice for Islam in Egypt. Though Sunni, Zaynab al-Ghazali was a powerful Qur'anic teacher, an activist who challenged secularism and gendered oppression in Egypt. She was imprisoned and tortured by the Jamal Abdel Nasser regime in the 1960s for her religious activism. In her memoirs, which are titled Days from My Life, Ayyam min Hayati, she writes, "In the woman's prison, I saw a miniature image of the prison of Sayyid Zaynab bint Ali." Next, let us look at Razan al-Najjar, the martyr in the white coat. A 21-year-old Palestinian medic from Gaza, Razan al-Najjar was shot by Zionist snipers while treating wounded protesters during the Great March of Return in 2018. She became a global icon of sacrifice, dignity, and humanitarian resistance. The Quran says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, the chapter of the table spread, 5th chapter of the Quran, verse number 32, "And whoever saves one life, it is as if he had saved all of humanity." Her mother, upon her martyrdom, said, and this was in an interview given to Al Jazeera, "She went to save lives and returned as a pure martyr." Next, let us look at Shireen Abu Akleh, silenced for bearing witness. A Christian Palestinian journalist, Shireen Abu Akleh, was shot dead while reporting on Israeli raids in the West Bank in 2022. She is revered by Muslims and Christians alike. She exposed injustice until her last breath. Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, may God bless his pure soul, said, "She is a martyr of the word, a martyr of the truth, a martyr of the stance, a martyr of the field. She was the voice of truth in the face of tyranny and occupation." Next, let us look at Serena Shim, the whistleblower of the Ummah. Serena Shim, a Lebanese-American journalist who uncovered the role of Turkish intelligence in aiding Daesh or ISIS. Days later, she was killed in a very suspicious car crash in Turkey in 2014. Despite threats to her life, she refused to remain silent. In her final interview on Press TV, she said, "I'm a bit afraid, but I have nothing to hide, and I will continue doing my job." Her family and many observers believe she was martyred for exposing the truth. Now, let us look at making the Zaynabi legacy a living curriculum. First of all, communities and believers should include these figures in Islamic history courses, not as political footnotes, but as spiritual exemplars of Tabyeen. They should encourage youth projects and storytelling that revive these names and others, their struggles, and their words. And they should create platforms for female scholars, for journalists, for artists, and educators to operate in light of Sayyid Zaynab's legacy with dignity, courage, and clarity. Imam Khamenei reminds us, if Sayyid Zaynab bint Ali could deliver a sermon in the Umayyad court, no one may say that women are unfit for this role. Please give me a loud salawat and we move on to the idea of same is not equal, unmasking the myths of misogyny and modernity.
اللهم صل
اللهم
على
صل على محمد وآل
محمد وآل
محمد.
شيخ
Today's youth are surrounded by conflicting paradigms. Patriarchy tells women, stay silent, you are deficient. And Western feminism tells women, imitate men, your femininity is a flaw. Both ignore the Quranic principle that difference does not mean inequality. In Quran, Surah Al-Imran, the chapter of the family of Imran, third chapter of the Quran, verse number 36, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, the male is not like the female. This is not a statement of superiority, but rather of distinction. In the eyes of God, spiritual worth is not based on gender. In Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab, chapter of the Confederates, 33rd chapter of the Quran, verse 35, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, surely the Muslim men and the Muslim women, the patient men and the patient women, God has prepared for them forgiveness and a great reward. Let us look at, in a bit more detail at the misinterpretation of Qawwamun, protectors. As we've said previously, one of the most misused verses in gender discourse is men are the protectors or Qawwamun over women. This is from Surah An-Nisa, chapter of the women, 4th chapter of the Quran, verse number 34. The word Qawwam does not mean superiority. Allama Tabatabai in Al-Mizan explains, what is meant by Qawwama is the care and management of a woman's affairs in both worldly and religious terms, not dominance or tyranny. The verse places greater responsibility on men, not greater honor. Let's now look at Shaykh Mutahhari, Feminine Identity is Not Inferior. In his seminal work, The Rights of Women in Islam, Ayatollah Shaheed Murtada Mutahhari, he writes, if woman excels man in beauty and delicacy, he excels her in strength and firmness. Each completes the other. He rebuked Western feminists for demanding women act like men, thereby destroying the sanctity of womanhood. The Islamic system does not want women to become men, he says. He wants them to remain women and to excel as women. Imam Khomeini, he talks about elevation through obedience to God, not fashion. Imam Khomeini warned against materialist and colonialist ideologies targeting women. He said, they want to remove women from her sacred status, to make her a tool in the hands of colonialism. He called for the revival of Fatimiyya-style dignity. He said, the woman presented in Islam is Sayyidah Fatimah al-Zahra, not the woman who appears in the streets or on television screens. And Imam Khamenei, he teaches that balance is the key. In multiple addresses, Imam Khamenei has reiterated, and again, the references for where these addresses are from are all in the write-up. So Imam Khamenei has said, Islam did not wrong women, and women are not wronged in Islam. The one truly wronged is the woman who does not realize her own nobility. He emphasized that true empowerment lies in knowing one's fitra or innate nature. He says, justice requires that we grant woman her true status and human dignity, not that we make her into a copy of a man or force her to resemble a man. Let us now look at patriarchy and feminism as two sides of the same coin. So patriarchy restricts women in the name of honor, and feminism distorts women in the name of freedom. Both erase the fitrah, the divinely embedded nature of human beings. The late Ayatollah Muhammad Taqi Misbah Yazdi, may God bless his pure soul, notes, a woman's perfection is not in resembling a man, but in attaining her own distinct perfections. Let us look at a theology of gender rooted in revelation. Communities should include tafsir classes that unpack various verses such as Surah An-Nisa, verse 34, Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 35, Surah Al-Imran, verse 36, verses we've mentioned, with commentary from places like Al-Mizan, from Tafsir Namuna, and from the contemporary scholars. Community should also promote the reading of material from Ayatollah Mutahhari, from Ayatollah Jawadi Amali, and Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi, and Ayatollah Beheshti, amongst others, in premarital education and youth seminars. And they must train scholars and public speakers to engage gender issues with theological depth, not just reactive slogans. Let us reclaim this narrative, not by replicating the West, not by defending cultural patriarchy, but by clarifying what God has already clarified. Please give me a loud salawat and we move on to the subject of if the mothers are broken, the collapse of the ummah begins at home.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
So the womb as a divine trust. The Quran honors the maternal role as sacred, referring to the womb as a site of divine creation. In Surah Al-Mu'minun, the chapter of the believers, 23rd chapter of the Quran, verses 12 to 14, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "Certainly we created humans from an extract of clay. Then we made him a drop of seminal fluid lodged in a secure abode. Then we created the drop of fluid as a clinging mass. Then we created the clinging mass as fleshy tissue. Then we created the fleshy tissue as bones. Then we clothed the bones with flesh. Then we produced him as yet another creature. So blessed is God, the best of creators." The womb, or rahim, so sanctified that God derives his name Ar-Rahman from it. The womb, and this is from Al-Kulayni, there is a hadith, the womb, or in Arabic it's called Ar-Rahim, is derived from Ar-Rahman. Let us look at the collapse begins at home. When the status of motherhood is diminished, the foundation of future generations is shaken. Imam Ali has said, "The child is the fruit of the heart." And the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, famously stated, "Paradise lies at the feet of mothers." This is not mere sentiment. Rather, it is theology. When the mother is broken, the child lacks emotional grounding, the family loses its center of mercy, and the ummah produces individuals untethered from love, prayer, and meaning. Let us look at the Quranic promise to the righteous, regardless of gender. Islamic value is based on piety, not upon gender. In Surah An-Nahl, the chapter of the bee, 16th chapter of the Quran, verse 97, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, "Whoever does righteous deeds, male or female, while having faith, we will surely grant them a goodly life." Let us look at Sayyidah Fatimah al-Zahra, the mother of the Ummah. Now, she was not only the mother of Imam Hussein, Sayyidah Zaynab, but in fact, she is the mother of the entire Ummah. Imam Khomeini, may God rest his pure soul, has said, Sayyidah Fatimah al-Zahra is the perfect manifestation of humanity and the example of the complete woman in the world. She is the model mother, the model mourner, the model mujahida, whose home became the nucleus of divine leadership. Ayatollah Beheshti says motherhood is not subordination, it is sovereignty. He says, "Woman is a human, and a great one at that. Woman is the nurturer of society. From her lap, humanity ascends to the heavens." And Imam Khamenei says, "The mother shapes the future." He says, "Raising children is a responsibility placed upon the mother, and if fulfilled rightly, will yield a noble and God-fearing society." Let us now look at the revival of reverence. Educate the ummah, educate the communities on Quranic verses and hadith regarding motherhood. Not just on Mother's Day, but in sermons or khutbah, in schools and in the media. There should be the launching of community campaigns like Fatimiyya, honoring the sacred womb, engaging scholars, poets, and families. There should be a reframing of family discourse, balanced between the roles of the father and the mother, rooted in Risat al-Huquq and Quranic ethics, as well as the teachings of the senior scholars. And there should be training for men to honor the mothers of their children. for their silence and patience are not weakness, but rather are jihad. This should be a year-round honoring, not one-day tokenism. In a world that reduces the honor of women to a single calendar date, with slogans on Mother's Day or Woman's Day, Islam offers something deeper, a lifelong reverence rooted in divine instruction. Rather than a single day of praise, followed by a year of neglect, the followers of Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, peace and blessings be upon her, must build a culture where every day is a day of Fatimiyya, a day to recognize the moral, emotional, and spiritual foundation that women lay within the family and the ummah. And this is especially true during the Ayyam Fatimiyya, the days of mourning for Sayyidah Fatima Zahra, when her light, silence, and stand for truth should reawaken in every heart a sense of duty towards those who carry the trust of life itself. Let Fatimiyya become the new Woman's Day, not as a replacement for societal activism, but as its sanctified anchor, rooting resistance in the womb that nurtured prophets, the Imams, the martyrs, and the righteous. Please give me a loud salawat and we move on to the conclusion.
اللهم صل على محمد.
So, in every age, the martyr is mourned, but it is the witness who is forgotten. The sword of Imam Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him, stunned the world, but it was the voice of Sayyidah Zaynab that interpreted the meaning of that sword. It is here that the work of Tabyeen or clarification reaches its most demanding form. Not just to resist with our bodies, but to clarify with our words. Not just to weep, but to stand. Not just to inherit sorrow, but to carry the trust of truth. Sayyidah Zaynab was not a spectator of history. She was not a woman who merely endured. She rose, she clarified, and she thundered. From Kufa to Damascus, she stood taller than palaces and empires. And today, we are faced with a choice: to admire her from a distance or to walk in her footsteps. And as she said, so plot your schemes and exert your efforts and strive with all of your power. As she said to Yazid, by God, you will never erase our remembrance, nor extinguish our revelation, nor reach our end, nor wash away your shame. And let us look at the Quranic mandate to clarify. The Quran commands, and this is from Surah Al-Furqan, chapter of the Criterion, 25th chapter of the Quran, verse 52. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and strive against them with it, yani with the Quran, a mighty striving. This jihad, this mighty striving is the jihad of clarification or tabyeen, of truth spoken without distortion, without fear, without compromise. It is the jihad of Sayyidah Zaynab. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, has said, when innovations or bid'ah appear and the scholar remains silent about them, let him prepare his seat in the fire. And this is a legacy carried by everyone. The mission of Sayyidah Zaynab was not limited to women. It is a legacy for every believer who seeks to clarify, to defend, and stand. In Al-Kafi, we have a hadith which says, be callers to our cause without using your tongue, this is Imam Sadiq, but through your actions, and be an adornment for us, not a disgrace. A man who protects rather than controls. A youth who questions with reverence. And a mother who weaves faith, dua, and dignity into every word, and raises her child firm upon the truth. A student who challenges distortion. Each and every one of these is Zaynabi. From Sayyidah Zaynab from Sayyidah Fatima Zahra to Sayyidah Zaynab, until Imam al-Hujjah, Jalla Ta'ala Faraj Shaykh, may God hasten his return, may our souls be his ransom. Sayyidah Fatima Zahra stood alone in Medina. Sayyidah Zaynab rose in chains in Damascus. And now we await the final witness, the Imam of our time, Imam Mahdi, may our souls be his ransom and may God hasten his return. He carries their light. When he returns, he will not ask who mourned Sayyidah Zaynab. He will ask who continued her work. Will we be among those who were ready? Like we say in Dua Ahad, "Oh God, make me amongst his supporters, his aides, and those who defend him." Are we going to be like that? Let us now look ahead. The ink, the poem, and the witness. Our journey continues. If Sayyidah Zaynab preserved the message with her words, then who preserves it now? In the next and final part of this series, we will explore the agents of transmission, the writers who carry the truth with the pen, the poets who encode resistance in rhythm, and the witnesses who keep the fire alive through remembrance and tears. And we will ask, are we worthy of being their heirs? Now, please give me a loud salawat, and we move to the supplication eulogy, which this evening is entitled, Sayyidah Zaynab is our witness.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرج.
In your name, O God, the one who counts every footstep made in yearning, and every tear shed in longing, you who heard the cry in Karbala, and you who now hear the silence in Gaza. O Lord of the shrine, O witness of the oppressed, we walk, but we ask you, do we walk like Sayyidah Zaynab walked? Do we rise like she rose? Do we weep only for her chains? Or do we weep that we still refuse to carry her burden? O Sayyidah Zaynab, daughter of the Lion of God, voice of Wilayah, witness of Hussein's blood, you saw your sons martyred, you saw your veil torn, you stood in the court of the tyrant and said, I saw nothing but beauty. You whose feet were shackled, yet whose voice shook empires, you who were robbed of sanctity, yet preserved the sanctity of Hussein, you are our witness. O Sayyidah Zaynab, we walk towards Karbala, but do we walk away from injustice? We mourn the tents that burned, yet ignore the homes ablaze in Rafah. We cry for Ali al-Asghar, but remain silent as the children of Gaza are choked not by arrows, but by imposed famine. O Sayyidah Zaynab, we wear black for your grief, but our hearts are whitewashed with indifference. We raise slogans of love, but fail to stand for the truth. You are our witness. O God, we walk to Karbala, but do we walk away from sin, from arrogance, from injustice, from the neglect of the oppressed, from the comfort that makes cowards of us all? O Lord of the martyrs, forgive us, for we weep at the shrine, but remain mute before the cries of the unborn, whose lives are discarded in the name of choice. We whisper prayers, yet leave our elders forgotten, until cold systems offer the easier exit, and we call it mercy. O God, you gave us Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra, and we did not defend her legacy. You gave us Sayyidah Zaynab, and we used her name but not her voice. You gave us mothers, and we let them be dishonored, traded for convenience and culture. We walk now, not in triumph but in repentance. We walk not for reward, but for redemption. O Imam al-Mahdi, O son of Imam Hussein, O eye of the oppressed, O awaited one in Gaza and in Karbala, O hidden Zaynabi in the cloak of ghaiba or occultation, we walk to your grandfather's grave, but we carry your mission in our hands. Accept this walk as a pledge that we will rise as Husseini, speak as Zaynabi, and serve as Mahdawi. O Master, forgive us for delaying your return with our cowardice and compromise. Forgive us for watching injustice from screens while you weep in the night for your followers who sleep through their duties. You are our Imam, and Sayyidah Zaynab is our witness. O God, make this walk our migration to truth. Let every blister erase a sin. Let every tear wash away our heedlessness. Let every dua open the road to action. Make us Zaynabi, not just in grief, but in grit. Make us Mahdawi, not just in words, but in will. Make us Husseini, not just in mourning, but in movement. For if we return from Karbala unchanged, then did we ever really arrive? O God, make us amongst his helpers, his aides, his defenders, those who hasten to fulfill his needs, those who obey his commands, those who protect him, those who precede others in seeking his pleasure, and those who attain martyrdom before him. Sayyidah Zaynab is our witness. Let us not be her shame. Let us be her answer. Amen, O Lord, sustainer of the universes. Amen, O most merciful of the merciful. وآخر الدعوان عن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
We now return to the Maqtal, the living account of martyrdom, captivity, and the voice that rose from the ruins of Karbala. A Maqtal is not fiction. It is a chronicle of sacred blood recorded by those who refuse to forget. Tonight's reading is Arbaeen Maqtal Part 4, The Entry of the Family of the Prophet into Yazid's Court by Brother Hasanain Dewji. To access the full text, visit www.themartyr.net.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. The sun had barely risen over Damascus, yet the city was already abuzz with a cruel anticipation. The streets were lined with people, some jeering, some weeping, as the battered caravan of the Prophet's family, his beloved granddaughters, daughters, and the ailing son of Imam Hussein was paraded through the city. At their head, on a bloodied spear, was the severed head of Imam Hussein, the grandson of the Messenger of Allah. The captives, weary and wounded, were herded into the grand court of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. The tyrant sat on his throne, intoxicated with wine and arrogance, surrounded by sycophants and courtiers. In his hand he held a cane, which he used to strike the lips and teeth of Imam Hussein's head, mocking and boasting before the assembly. Yazid's voice, slurred with drunkenness, echoed through the hall. Would that my forefathers who fell at Badr could see how I avenged them today. The Hashemites played with kingship, but no revelation came and no angel descended. The court erupted in laughter, but the air was heavy with the silent dignity of the captives. Among them stood Sayyidah Zaynab alayhi salam, the daughter of Imam Ali and Sayyidah Fatima alayhi salam, her back straight despite the chains, her eyes burning with the light of her grandfather the Prophet. Yazid, seeking to humiliate her, sneered, "How did you find what Allah did to your brother, O Zaynab?" Then in further arrogance, he quotes the following verse. Say, O Allah, sovereign of all dominion, you give dominion to whom you will, and remove dominion from who you will. You exalt whom you will, and abase whom you will. In your hand is all good. Indeed, you have power over all things. Holy Quran, chapter 3, verse 26. Sayyidah Zaynab alayhi salam responded with the following verse. And do not think those who disbelieve that our granting them respite is good for them. We only give them respite so that they may increase in sin, and for them is a humiliating punishment. Holy Quran, chapter 3, verse 178. With unwavering courage, Sayyidah Zaynab rose. Her voice, though weary, rang out with eloquence of her father, Imam Ali. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Blessings be upon my grandfather Muhammad and his pure progeny. O Yazid, do you think you have gained power over us because the earth has become narrow for us and the horizons have closed in? Do you think we are humiliated and you are honored? By Allah, you have not gained any honor, but you have only filled your hands with the blood of the family of the Prophet, and you will soon stand before Allah and his messenger to answer for your crimes. O Yazid, do you think you have closed all the doors of the earth and heavens for us, and that we have become captives, driven from city to city? You think that by humiliating us, you have gained honor. You are nothing but the son of the freed slaves. O the son of the freed slave, Yabna Tulaqa. It was the mercy of my grandfather Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that spared your ancestors, and now you dare to strike the head of his grandson and parade his family in chains? You may plot and scheme as much as you wish, but by Allah, you will never be able to erase our remembrance from the hearts of the believers, nor will you ever be able to extinguish the light of our message. Your days of power are numbered, and your shame will live on long after you are gone. The court fell silent. The arrogance of Yazid momentarily shaken by the majesty of her words. A paid orator ascended the pulpit, showering Yazid and his father Muawiyah with praise and cursing Imam Ali and Imam Hussein, peace be upon them. The young Imam Sajjad, tied in chains, turns towards the orator and tells him, "O man, indeed you have gained the pleasure of the creation, but you have gained the wrath of the Creator." Then, turning his face towards Yazid, he asks, "O Yazid, may I be permitted to ascend these planks of wood?" In reference to the pulpit, from where misguidance emanates instead of guidance. Yazid refuses, understanding that if he permitted Imam Sajjad to speak, he and his forefathers would soon be exposed. However, there is an uproar from the assembly, and Yazid is forced to relent and allow Imam Sajjad to address the gathering. Imam Sajjad stood, his face radiant with the light of prophethood. He introduced himself to the people, reminding them of his lineage. "O people, those who know me know me. Those who do not know me, may I introduce myself. I am the son of Makkah and Mina. I am the son of Zamzam and Safa. I am the son of Muhammad, the messenger of Allah. I am the son of Ali, the lion of Allah. I am the son of Fatima, the doyen of the ladies of the worlds. I am the son of Hussein, who was slaughtered at Karbala while thirsty and alone." The crowd, moved to tears, began to weep and wail. Yazid, fearing a revolt, ordered the muazzin to call the azan, hoping to silence the imam. As the muazzin reached, "Ashhadu anna Muhammadur Rasulullah," Imam Sajjad turned to Yazid and challenged him. "O Yazid, is Muhammad my grandfather or your grandfather? If you claim he is yours, you lie. If you admit he is mine, then why have you killed his family and taken his women captive?" Yazid, enraged and humiliated, threatened to kill Imam Sajjad. However, Nu'man bin Bashir, a former governor of Kufa who was present in the court, advised him against this action, and he relented. Objection of the Roman ambassador and the Jewish rabbi. Unable to contain his outrage, the Roman ambassador rose and addressed Yazid. O Yazid, in my land we preserve a relic of Jesus, the son of Mary, and we honor it with the utmost reverence. You, however, desecrate the head of your own prophet's grandson? What answer will you give your prophet on the day of judgment when he asks you about this crime? The court fell silent. Yazid's face darkened, but the ambassador continued, his voice trembling with righteous anger. Had we been blessed with a lineage such as yours, we would have carried their memory with pride and love, not with chains and humiliation. Woe to you, Yazid! You have shamed your nation before the world. Moved by the ambassador's words, the Jewish rabbi steps forward. He too had recognized the nobility of the captives and the sanctity of the Prophet's family. He turned to Yazid and said, "We have read in our scriptures of the coming of your Prophet, and we know of his family's honor. How can you treat the children of your own Prophet with such cruelty? In our tradition, even the enemies of our prophets are not treated in this manner. Fear God, O Yazid, for the wrath of the Almighty is severe." The captives, hearing these words, felt a moment of solace, proof that the truth of their suffering transcended faith and nation. The people of the court too was shaken. Some wept openly, while others hung their heads in shame. Yazid, humiliated and outraged, ordered the ambassador and the rabbi to be silenced and removed from his presence. But the words of these men echoed through the halls, a testimony to the universal respect for the Prophet's family and a condemnation of Yazid's tyranny. In that moment, the world bore witness to the dignity of the Ahlul Bayt, could not be diminished, not by chains, not by swords, and not by the arrogance of kings. The captives were hurriedly sent to the dungeons beneath the palace in order to avoid any further embarrassment and humiliation to Yazid and Bani Umayyah. Though unseen by the eyes of the world, the awaited Imam al-Mahdi Ajalallahu Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif bore witness to the steadfastness and suffering of his aunt Zaynab and his grandfather Imam Sajjad alayhi salam in the court of Yazid. Their patience and courage in the face of tyranny became a beacon for all generations, a trust carried in the heart of the final Imam, who would one day rise to avenge the blood of the martyrs and restore justice to the earth. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٌ يَنْقَلِبُونَ إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ راجعون. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
We now move to the Nohe, the lament that gives melody to mourning. Tonight's Nohe is titled Ya Zaynab and follows in the tradition of Zaynab's tears and Sajjad's patience. To revisit tonight's Nohe and explore others, please visit www.shiasounds.com.
Ya Zaynab, voice of the oppressed. Ya Zaynab, champion of the blessed, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek. Holy Zaynab, holy Zaynab, see the path in the dust, dragged across the sand, burning the searing heat, walking hand in hand, shackled by heavy chain, woman and child, wounded and traumatized, tortured and defiled, dragged from place to place. Their aim was to disgrace. People jeered and stared, curses they declared, curses they declared, curses they declared. Ya Zaynab, voice of the oppressed. Ya Zaynab, champion of the blessed, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek. Holy Zaynab, holy Zaynab. Midst the crowd, shadow-like, hearing what they say, cheering and mockingly, children laugh and play. Know they not who it is midst this caravan? Guardian less burdened, displayed before all Sham. Cry they, alas, where is Abbas? Cry they, alas, where is Abbas? Where is Abbas? Where is Abbas? Ya Zaynab, voice of the oppressed. Ya Zaynab, champion of the blessed, guardian of the meek, mother of the weak, mother of the meek, guardian of the weak. Holy Zaynab, holy Zaynab. Zaynab now enters the court of vile Yazid. Demons cry out his name, praising all his deeds. Say they see what Allah's done to your Hussein. Mock Zaynab boastfully, cursed her blessed name. Laughing and jeering at Zayn al-Abidin. Shadowy witnesses weeping at the scene. What is in their hearts? Faith it plays no part. Evilness and sin, all that is within. Betrayed they Zaynab, betrayed they Zaynab. Ya Zaynab, voice of the oppressed. Ya Zaynab, champion of the blessed, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek. Holy Zaynab, holy Zaynab. Bloody and beaten, chains tear at their flesh, wounds that will never heal, witness their distress. Step forward, Ali, Zayn al-Abidin, cries out, oh, gaze at me, what face have you seen? Do you not recognize the son of Fatima from the first of the first holy Mustafa? See no resemblance to the face of Murtada. I am the son of Makkah and Mina. See you, the offspring of Zamzam and Safa, son of sweet Hussein, slaughtered on that plain. Naught but blood and sand on your governor's hands. Curse them, Yazid, curse them, Yazid. Ya Zaynab, voice of the oppressed. Ya Zaynab, champion of the blessed, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek. Holy Zaynab, holy Zaynab. Midst all the blood and dust, sorrow and the jeers, silence for then descends the fragrance of her tears. Faces contorted as on the judgment day, shamelessly witnessing evil on display. Zaynab's cries out, oh, reflect on all your deeds. Arrogant, murderous, in who will you plead? A prophet set men free, justice he decreed. Allah may delay, but surely he repay. Trust in Allah, trust in Allah. Ya Zaynab, voice of the oppressed. Ya Zaynab, champion of the blessed, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek. Holy Zaynab, holy Zaynab. Son of the free ones, you swagger without shame. You cover your women, but the prophets you defame. You've ordered the torment of the holy and the chaste, and at Karbala lie the bodies of the blessed. You pulled your own skin and you cut off your own flesh. For I see the victory of the righteous and oppressed. Though misery abound, victory can be found. Joy for the serene, beauty's all I've seen. For holy Ashura, Alhamdulillah. For holy Ashura, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Ya Zaynab, voice of the oppressed. Ya Zaynab, guardian of the blessed, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek. Holy Zaynab, holy Zaynab. Zaynab, witness to the message of Tabyeen, clarifies the battle against the vile mustakbirin, the flag of resistance, the cloak of Al-Kisar. Zaynab, she leads the charge, the scream from Ashura. Though heads may be severed and bodies torn apart, children lay tortured, oh, witness Karbala. Yet I see in the distance a warrior afar, a grandson of eternity, the Hujjah of Allah. He'll cast off all the change, avenger of Hussein. Our tears must now be swords to taste this blessed reward. For beauty to be seen, we must be warriors of Tabyeen, Mujahid of Tabyeen, Mujahid of Tabyeen. Ya Zaynab, voice of the oppressed. Ya Zaynab, champion of the blessed, guardian of the weak, mother of the weak, guardian of the weak, mother of the weak. Holy Zaynab, holy Zaynab. Ya Zaynab, voice of the oppressed. Ya Zaynab, champion of the blessed, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek, guardian of the weak, mother of the meek. Holy Zaynab, holy
We now turn to the communion of Arbaeen. This is a poetic, interpretive rendering of Ziyarat Arbaeen in English, a world first created by the Truth Promoters Group to honor the living message of Hussein and Zaynab. It is not simply a recitation, it is a mirror for the soul. You can listen again at www.shiasounds.com.
Peace be upon the friend of God, thrown not into fire by idol worshippers, but into silence by a nation who claimed to pray. Peace be upon the beloved, whose love was betrayed by those who lifted hands in prayer, yet turned their backs on the very soul of Tawheed. Peace be upon the purified, son of the pure, light of Zahra's sorrow and Ali's soul, whose blood was spilt by hands that moved in prayer, but never trembled at the thought of God. Peace be upon the son of the purified, the fruit of Zahra's broken ribs, the soul of the Prophet's prayer. Peace be upon the child of light, who stood like Ibrahim amidst the idols, yet found no miracle to cool the flames, only the silence of a nation that once wept at his birth. Peace be upon the one who was seen not by tyrants but by his mother, as each arrow stole a breath, and each scream of a thirsty child tore the veil between Karbala and the unseen. And woe to the scholars of memorized Qur'ans whose hands forgot its meaning. Woe to the men who bartered eternity for a kingdom they never received. O people of prayer, where was your love when the head of Hussein was raised on a spear? Peace be upon the oppressed martyr, whose crime was truth, whose sentence was silence, whose judge was the Ummah that once kissed his lips. Saint Mary wept beneath a cross for a son who was made to appear slain. Sayyidah Zaynab wept from the unseen for a son who truly was. One was spared by divine will, one was trampled by a nation of veiled hearts. You loved them, you guided them, you forgave them, and they answered with swords. And now I tremble, not at your oppressors, but at the mirror of my own delay. Am I one who mourns, or one who moves? Do I raise your banner, or let it fall to keep the approval of pharaohs in suits? My arm weakens, but my heart screams. I will not betray you, O Shaheed. I will not greet your name with tears and meet your cause with excuses. I bear witness that you established the prayer not only with limbs, but with love. That you built its sanctuary not in stone, but in the soul, and taught hearts how to kneel, even as swords circle your throat. You gave to the beggar, the orphan, the fugitive, not from excess, but from hunger, and said, we desire no reward only the face of God. You taught what was right, warned against what destroys, and obeyed not your soul, but the one who shaped it. Until the end, until the certainty, until the head fell and still the tongue moved. And I say these words with trembling lips, drowning in sins, ashamed to be heard by you. Yet I see a hand, not of blame, but of love. The hand of your Son, the hand of the awaited. And I hear a voice that says, rise, repent, return. The prayer must still be established, the sword must still be sheathed in justice, the banner must still be raised. Be not afraid, for the sons of Mary and Hussein will walk again, and they will ask, were you with us or with them? He gave his blood, not for land, not for throne, but to pull us from the quicksand of ignorance and the wasteland of misguidance. He offered the child, the son, the brother, each drop of love poured out to cleanse our hearts of arrogance and blindness. And I wallow in self-love, draped in the filth of excuses, while his hand still reaches out from the unseen. Come, he whispers. You are not beyond salvation. I weep for the mothers who hide their poverty in shame, while pulpits demand payment to speak in his name. I rage against the sellers of salvation, who make merchandise of mercy, who drug the people with dead words, while the children of Gaza die unnamed. O son of Zahra, you sought not to rule, but to lift the veils from the eyes of men. You died to raise a people who would carry truth like fire in their palms. And I swear by the blood on the sand, by the tears of your sister, by the cry of your son, I will not sleep, I will not sell, I will not surrender. Until we complete your mission or die upon its path. Among them are those who fulfilled their vow, and among them are those who await. Yet they did not change in the least. They tore your limbs, not in the heat of war, but in the coldness of injustice. The sword did not tremble, the hands did not flinch, the hearts did not feel. Like Jesus, like Yahya, like the prophets they beheaded, they butchered you, not because you failed, but because you would not bow. And the severing continues in bombs dropped on nurseries, in clinics turned into crematoriums, in wombs where life is declared inconvenient, in nursing homes turned into graveyards by the children they raised. Oh Hussein, I see your body in every corpse crushed beneath progress. I see your ribs in every soul broken by betrayal. I see your blood in every sin I commit, while wearing your name on my lips. But I also hear a voice, not of shame, but of invitation. If your limbs are torn by sin, bind them with repentance. If your heart is fractured, let it beat again for truth. The Mahdi calls, the rope of God still hangs. The door is still open, and though I am unworthy, I will walk through it, because this is the way. This is the way. He was killed by those who Islam had raised, not by strangers, but by the memorizers of the Qur'an, not by idol worshippers, but by those who bowed without bowing within. And I weep, not only for Hussein, but for the terrifying truth that I could be one of them. I speak of Tabyeen, but do I clarify for myself? Or do I cover truth with commentary and call my betrayals scholarship? I look in the mirror and I see Umar ibn Sa'ad whispering, Ray is worth it. I fall to my knees, unable to stand before Zahra, with the blood of a child on my hands. But then, a voice, a flag, a cry from the distance. I see the sun rising in the west. I see Sajjad upright in chains. I see Zaynab undefeated in sorrow. And I see him, I see him, I see him, the son of Hussein, my master, the ache in my soul, the Yusuf of Zahra. And I cry, do not let me fall. If they beat me, strengthen me. If they tempt me, blind me. If I forget, remind me. O Lord, train me in love. Crucify my ego and make me roar against injustice, so that the name your name and your name alone is always the most high. I bear witness not with tongue alone, but with this trembling soul, that I am with you in peace and in war, in silence and in storm, in public and in secret. Though my hands have strayed, though my eyes have wandered, though I have failed you more times than I dare to count, still I say, I am with you. And if my hands betray you, I will sever them. If my eyes deceive you, I will blind them. All I want is a glance, one glance from the Yusuf of Zahra, one glance from the Mahdi in occultation, one glance from the heart of the Prophet that will say, you are not forgotten. My wealth is yours, my family is yours, my blood, my breath, my voice, my everything is yours. If they strike your wali, let me be the shield. If they curse him, let me be the tongue that answers. If they aim arrows at his chest, let me be the one who stands and takes them, until there is nothing left but dust. And if I must be torn, cut, burned, and torn again 1,000,000 times over, I will not flinch. Because to stand with Sayyid Ali is to stand with you. To defend your representative is to kiss the feet of your grandfather. And to stand with your blood is to stand with God. This is my covenant, my allegiance, my vow. If I break it, O God, cast me from your mercy. For what good is paradise without the smile of Hussein? With you, never with your enemy. No matter how far I fall, no matter how dark the night, I will never stand with those who profit from your wounds and wear your name like a mask. I want nothing from them. No alliances, no truce, no tolerance. How can I share breath with those who sell your blood for silver soaked in children's screams? How can I ever trust the ones who betrayed Hussein, not to betray the Mahdi? I will fight them, expose them, pray that God casts them from the shade of his mercy until they awaken or perish. They speak of heaven and buy homes with crocodile tears, But how will they pass the gate when Ali stands there with a sword and a book of names? I am not with them, not with the tyrants, not with the bankers who enslave, not with the politicians who kneel to capital, not with the scholars who have forgotten how to weep. If they cut me, burn me, tear me to pieces 1,000,000 times, I will not relent. My allegiance is eternal in this world and the next. And if I must fall into hell for my sins, even from its depths, I will cry, where are you, O hope of the believers? O Lord of Hussein, if I am to live, let it be for truth. If I am to die, let it be for loyalty. Take me before I betray the ones I love, before I shame the eyes of Zahra. All that I have and all that I am, I place at your feet. My soul is yours, my heart is yours, my body is yours, my strength, my weakness, my voice, my silence, my hands, my feet, my opinions, my desires, even my shame, all yours. I come with nothing, I come as dust, I come as sin upon sin, tremble upon tremble, still hoping you will not cast me away. For though I am broken, I am yours. I am oppressed by my own crime, but I rise as an enemy to the oppressor. And I swear, if you know that I am false, then destroy me, burn me, scatter me into fire. But if you know my love is true, then make me worthy. Shield me from myself, guide me from their plots, and let me serve, even if only to sweep the earth where the Mahdi walks. Let me be one whose breath brings joy to Zahra. Let me be one whose whisper does not shame Ali. Let me be one whose love makes Hussein smile, even once. Oh my Lord, I am yours, I am theirs. Forgive me. Forgive me. Forgive me. I saw nothing but beauty, said Zaynab in chains, while I crumble at the weight of smaller griefs. Teach me to see as she saw, to love as she loved, to rise as she rose, undefeated, unveiled, unafraid. I see Sajjad greeting his father's severed head with peace, whispering the verse of the cave, reminding us that the sleepers will wake and Mahdi shall rise. And I see the abused mother of the Mahdi, insulted like Maryam, her rights stolen, her dignity shattered, her pain buried in our silence. They said they loved the Prophet while tearing apart his daughter. They said they worshipped God while slaughtering his light. And still, today, the child killers of Gaza are blessed by the priests of empire, the murderers of Hind Rajab are praised by politicians who smile through genocide. But we have not forgotten. The graves of the martyrs whisper. The tears of children echo in the Arbaeen march. And the Mahdi hears every cry. Divine love is not poetry. It is protest. It is protection. It is standing in front of the bullet and daring it to pass. I see the people of Bahrain, of Yemen, of Nigeria, of Lebanon, of Syria, of the broken homes and broken hearts. And I scream, where is the justice you promised, O Lord of Hussein? I remember the Risalat al-Huquq, the Charter of Rights that Sajjad gave the world. And I vow, I will not forget the right of the poor. I will not forget the right of the prisoner. I will not forget the right of the child. If Mahdi is delayed because of me, then let me be reshaped, burned, broken, reformed, but not left behind. Let me be the soil beneath his feet. Let me shield him like the lovers of Karbala shielded Hussein during prayer. And in his absence, let me never doubt his flag bearer. Let me serve the Wali al-Faqih with such loyalty that my hands move before his voice finishes the sentence. If I cannot follow the one who represents him, how can I claim to follow him? Let me die before I betray the trust. Kill me, O Lord, before I become a wound in the heart of Mahdi. I have come broken and sinful to this grave of fire and fragrance. I do not bring perfection. I bring longing. I bring wounds. I bring the ache that would not let me sleep. I bring a promise sealed in pain, carved in tears, that I will not betray you, O Hussein. This world did not deserve you, and I have not yet made myself worthy of your dust. But still I crawl to you from behind veils of shame and whisper, will you accept me? I am not from the 72. I am not from the pure. I am not from the brave. But
I am from the broken, and the broken have always belonged to you. Let me weep at your grave until my heart becomes clean. Let me whisper your name until my soul remembers who it was. Let me walk in your shadow until the sun of Mahdi rises and burns away the night. And if I die before that dawn, bury me near your lovers. Mark my grave with no name. Just write upon it, this one tried. O my Lord, O Rahman, O Rahim, accept this whisper. Accept this march, accept this communion, for you alone are the goal, and you alone remain. And from him alone is all ability, and he has authority over all things.
As this night ends, let us remember her words, spoken in the palace of the tyrant. So plot your plots and exert your efforts, for by Allah, you will never erase our remembrance. Sayyidah Zaynab, peace be upon her. Tonight, we walked with Zaynab. May her courage live in our actions and her defiance echo through every truth we clarify. Thank you for joining us. Tomorrow, we return for the final night of the series, Night 5, The Ink, the Poem, the Witness. A tribute to every writer, mourner, and clarifier who refuses to let truth be forgotten. Until then, may your voice be fearless, your silence be sacred, and your memory be aligned with the divine. Peace be upon you, and peace be upon Hussein.